Halfway to work, a car was coming toward me that lost control. There was also a car behind me that was following too close, and the car that lost control ended up swerving into my lane and hitting me head on, simultaneous with the car behind me hitting me from behind.
It was about 4 years ago that I started having symptoms, and they're out of nowhere, just came out of left field. Just all of a sudden, I was just sitting on a couch one day, and I had something like come over me, like an electrical shock go through my head and face and like down my throat, and started having like battery acid taste in my mouth and all these strange things that I had never experienced before, you know, that were really scary. I was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia.
I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in January 2004 and with Lyme's disease in June 2011. Symptoms of my illness were my feet hurt. And I was on my feet every day because I was working in retail. And you're on them 8 hours a day. And then it got worse. And when it went into my right knee, that's when I had to go to the emergency room.
And I didn't have insurance either, so I just tried to go to whoever I could. I went to emergency rooms a lot because that was the only way that I could get CAT scans or MRIs or whatever that I actually needed. And I kind of went to an emergency room a couple times because I wasn't actually able to physically swallow my food, which was one of the symptoms. They told me I was having panic attacks, and that it was which added just to what my friends and family were saying about it, which was really upsetting to me because I had everyone around me telling me that I was basically crazy.
I went sort of downhill because after my knees, then it got in my hands and wrists. So whatever was going on was just getting worse and spreading throughout my body. That was pretty devastating.
I remember a lot of the trip on the way, you know, going to the hospital and that kind of thing, where I was seen and evaluated, and I had multiple injuries. My right leg was broken. The steering column, I bent the steering wheel with my sternum, and I had hit my head on the steering wheel. The whole front end of the car was pushed into me, so the dash was embedded in my knees. The steering wheel was in my chest and head, so I had injuries here on my head and here on my jaw.
As time progressed with it, it became harder and harder to deal with it. The symptoms started varying and were really disorienting and often very painful, specifically in my face and here. And that was hard because no one could see it. And it's one of the most difficult things to diagnose because it's just really obscure.
They called the paramedics and the police and that kind of thing. And I needed to be cut out of the car. You know, they had to get the jaws of life and cut me out of the car. So it was a really long, drawn-out ordeal just to get me out of the car.
On a scale of 0 to 100, my daily pain was probably about 500. And then I had to get up and go to work. The store manager and human resources and my manager, we had talks where, you know, they would say, I don't know if this job, you know, maybe this job isn't the type of job that's a good match for you. I showed up every day and I did the best of my ability, which was probably quite poor. I didn't know what I was gonna do.
After I was discharged from the hospital and brought home, the very first challenge that was there in front of me was I couldn't even get in the house because there was 4 steps going up to the front door of the house. And I was still in a wheelchair, and there was nobody there to really assist me to get me into the house. So I ended up with my leg in a cast out straight, sitting on each step and using my arms to back myself up and scoop myself into the house. It was initially really traumatic for me. Like, I've always been such a strong person and the person that takes care of everybody else.
I've never seen my mom so vulnerable as that time. It was every day, and things would set off. Stresses in her life would set the pain off that she was already having from the accident. So, bill collectors calling and that sort of thing would set off just these horrible pains, and she couldn't get help, and she ended up selling a lot of a lot of family heirlooms just to pay for hospital bills and her medication and all of that.
At that time when I was when I was being surrounded by not a lot of support, I guess I would say, it was really, really isolating. I got heavy into a depression, and I resorted to taking the only thing that could help me at the time, which I thought could help me, was pain pills for my pain that I would have. And I got addicted to them, which is very common, when you're taking them frequently. And I got into drinking, and that combination was really horrible, and it really destroyed me, my mind and my body, and spiritually I was just kind of in a desolate, dry place. Like, I didn't have a lot of resources within myself at that time. Yeah, it got me seeking alternative things, and I started realizing that I was gonna have to find an oasis in myself from this pain, instead of looking for support from my family or from a lover or whoever. It wasn't gonna come from any other place, and it was like, and drinking wasn't gonna help, and that ran its course, really quickly.
I couldn't go back to my job. I lost my job. You have to be able to return to work within, I don't know if it was 6 weeks or 6 months, something like that. If you can't, then you're considered permanently disabled. But I never got that money either, because once the verdict was it was nobody's fault, then I got nothing from anybody.
How I paid my bills after I lost my job, that became something where I had a 401k and cashed that out. And when I blew through that, it was end of the road. I racked up a lot of credit card debt, doing all these practices and procedures, trying to keep my condo. It was something where I'm like, I can't afford the payments, I can't make the payments. So I went into foreclosure, and then I moved in with my sister and nephew. It's embarrassing, and you don't want people to know, you don't want people to find out. I became a professional patient, and what that is just going to appointments all the time.
The fact that I was still being seen by the psychiatrist, despite the fact that the osteopath was treating me, or that I was still involved in physical therapy 3 times a week. I was involved in massage therapy another 3 times a week. Like, getting better became a full-time job. Every day I had someplace to go.
I started seeking out yoga and meditation, and I moved myself down from where I was living in Oregon, and I moved into a very healthy community in Southern California and by the beach, and lived a very simple life. That was an oasis for me. Yeah, I started really looking in, at that time for deeper resources.
Be your type, but please don't pay me any mind, 'cause I've just restored my will to live again.
I meet Dr. Troy, and I remember him saying, we need to retrain your body. Whenever I would have a flare-up, I'd have to go in, and he'd do an adjustment, and I got relief from pain.
Build yourself a really strong support system, which a lot of times can be a challenge. So if you don't have a big support system, like I didn't have a big support system around me at the time that it happened, I started making friends out of my therapist. And really that helped me in so many ways. Just being there for somebody can mean so much, even if it's really small things, just coming over and hanging out, watching TV or whatever that person is capable of doing would be so helpful. To be dependent on other people, it's a hard thing to get over, and that's one of the lessons that I learned. So among others, I learned a lot of lessons.
Yes, and what I don't know or feel I've accomplished yet in regaining my health, I feel like being here, I'm learning it. I think being back home, I would be too distracted. I can focus when I'm not around like family and friends. So I feel that by the time I leave and graduate from here next year, I will be well on my way to living a healthy lifestyle.
I would say to people that are struggling with being misdiagnosed and who are feeling isolated just in their pain, or the fact that they can't tell a lot of people about it, maybe they're embarrassed, or it's so many things that can isolate us within our own bodies. If it's a whole other trip to think that you're like being trapped by your own physical self because you can't go anywhere from here. And if you're in pain or you're struggling in some physical way, know that you can find a refuge in yourself. Illness can be your greatest strength because it will be a constant reminder of having to go deeper, or like having to go into a more a place that nothing can move you. You know, that's been the greatest lesson for me, is like, and I don't always stay there. God knows I fly off the handle frequently because of it, and I battle a temper. But I think that people should find that refuge in themselves.
You have to be willing and motivated to want to get better. I want to start my business, a patient exchange, and it's going to be about giving hope, inspiration, and community to patients. So I want it to be, hope is having options, inspiration is healing success stories, and community is going to be like the social network. So that's what I'm hoping to do.
And also know that you can talk to other people. You know, you can actually not, like, people are actually more willing to help you than you think they are. And I always kind of just assumed that I was bothering people and I was being needy or this and that. And truly, you're isolating yourself because you feel like you're a burden to other people, and you shouldn't do that. You should just be totally upfront about it and say, yo, I'm feeling shitty today because of this, and people should know that, and then they'll be more chill with you, or like know how to treat you. And
Listening to KRUULP 100.1 FM, the voice of Fairfield, Iowa, and this is your host, Christine, broadcasting live from a studio in Fairfield. All right, sorry.
I want to learn how to get all the health information out into the public through media and communications.